Anthony Sowell was someone who on the outside looked like a model citizen, especially considering his 7-year military career with multiple medals and commendations. But underneath the surface was a man with a dangerous sexual appetite. This started early in his life, as he was the perpetrator of several sexual assaults as a teenager, and also served 15 years in prison for kidnapping and attempted rape. On October 2009, his 2-story house sat in a poor Cleveland neighborhood known as Mount Pleasant. A foul stench had hovered around the area for the past 2 years, but initially everyone thought that it was from a nearby sausage factory. Anthony Sowell had invited Latundra Billups to his house for a drink. Afterwards, he beat her, choked her, and sexually assaulted her before she escaped and told the police. As police arrived with an arrest warrant, Sowell was nowhere to be found, but now the reason for the foul smell was identified. Welcome to History's Biggest Villains. Anthony Sowell was born on August 19, 1959 in Cleveland, Ohio. He was one of 7 children born to single mother Claudia Garrison. There was also 7 other children in the home belonging to Sowell's older sister, who had died from a chronic illness. So there was 14 children in the house, man. That's insane. Sowell suffered extreme physical abuse as a child. At his murder trial, his niece, Leona Davis, stated, Claudia would strip the children naked, tie them to poles or banisters, and whip them, sometimes with electrical cords. The beatings would occur almost daily and cause Davis to run away multiple times. Once, after being returned to her aunt's house by the police, she said she was beaten until she bled. Garrison took a high-heeled shoe and hit me on the head, Davis testified under questioning. Davis also testified that when she was 10 and Sowell was 12, he would fight her until she gave up and then rape her. Davis also said that other male children in the house raped her almost daily. Davis told jurors her abuse was so bad that she started fires in order to be sent to a juvenile facility. There, I was locked up and no one would hurt me, she explained. Sowell's nephew, Darnell Hatcher, testified that he was beaten so severely when he was young that to this day he doesn't wear shorts due to the scars. When asked by Parker why he was beaten, he said, I have no idea. I didn't ask. Probably as a means to escape his toxic household, Anthony entered the United States Marine Corps at the age of 18. During his 7-year military career, he received a Good Conduct Medal with 1 service star, a Sea Service Deployment Ribbon, a Certificate of Commendation, a Meritorious Mass, and 2 letters of appreciation. While he was in the military, he also developed an alcohol addiction that consisted of nearly 6 drinks a day. Sometimes he would even drink when he woke up. In 1989, he lured a pregnant woman to his apartment where he tied her hands and feet together, gagged her with a rag, and sexually assaulted her. She told police, he choked me real hard because my body started tingling. I thought I was going to die. In 1990, he was charged with kidnapping, rape, and attempted rape. He pled guilty to attempted rape and served 15 years in prison. He was released in 2005. After his release, Sowell worked in a factory until 2007 when he began collecting unemployment benefits. Neighbors said he earned a living selling scrap metal. They also complained to the health department of a foul smell in the neighborhood. Lori Frazier, a niece of former Cleveland Mayor Frank G. Jackson, had begun a relationship with Sowell shortly after his release from prison and lived in his house for a short time. She said she smelled decaying bodies and was told the smell was coming from Sowell's stepmother. When she moved out, she then said that the smell was from Ray's Sausage Shop located next door. On September 22, 2009, Sowell invited Latundra Billups to his house for drinks. After she left, she told police that after a few drinks he became angry and hit, choked, and raped her as she passed out. On October 29th, over a month later, police arrived at his house with an arrest warrant. He wasn't there, but he was found and arrested 2 days later. The bodies of 2 women were buried in a shallow grave in the basement, and 4 other women were found on the 3rd floor of the house and in crawl spaces. After digging in the backyard, investigators found 3 more bodies and partial remains of a 4th. A human skull in a bucket inside the house brought the body count to 11. Most of the victims were killed by manual strangulation, and others were gagged or had ligatures on their bodies when they were discovered. Sowell was held on $5 million bond. His trial was initially supposed to start on June 2, 2010, but was repeatedly delayed, first to September 7th to give his attorneys more preparation time, then to February 14, 2011, then to May 2nd at the request of his attorneys who needed even more time to examine thousands of records and hours of surveillance footage from the property next door to Sowell's, and later to June 6th at the request of the prosecution due to scheduling conflicts. The trial finally began on June 6, 2011. Sowell was charged with 11 counts of aggravated murder and 74 counts of rape, kidnapping, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse. He pled not guilty by reason of insanity, but later changed his plea to simply not guilty. On July 22nd, he was convicted on all but 2 counts, including the murders of the 11 women whose bodies were found on his property in 2009. On August 10th, jurors recommended the death penalty. On August 12th, Judge Dick Ambrose upheld the jury's recommendation. On September 14th, he was placed on death row and imprisoned at the Chillicothe Correctional Institution. On November 5, 2009, 2 of the 11 victims were identified. All of Sowell's known victims were black women who ranged in age from 24 to 53. Authorities were accused of a slow response to the case, which was exacerbated by the fact that some of Sowell's victims were never even reported missing. For others, families could not even get police to open up cases because their loved ones struggled with mental health issues and addiction. Yes, just like the police, to not do any work. Crystal Dozier, a 38-year-old mother of 7, went missing in May 2007. In a 2011 interview, her mother described her as the responsible child and her little mother hen. Unfortunately, after one of Dozier's children died, she struggled with drug addiction, which Sowell likely preyed upon. Because she had previously gone missing, Dozier's family accused the police of failing to investigate and launched their own campaign to find her. In 2009, police discovered her remains next to a fence in Sowell's backyard. Tashana Culver was 33 and spent several years without stable housing before rebuilding her life and moving into a small apartment in the Woodland Hills Park area of Cleveland. Her family recalls her acts of kindness, including bringing plates of food to those living in their vehicles. But like many of Sowell's victims, Culver struggled with drugs and drifted in and out of her family's life. Culver disappeared in 2008, and her family feared the worst when they learned of Sowell's murders. On November 25, 2009, the Cuyahoga County Coroner's Office identified Culver's remains. LaShonda Long, a mother of 3, was last seen in August 2008. Her aunt called her strong-willed and sassy in an interview, but drugs became a prominent part of her niece's life. Long was only 24 at the time of her death, and the youngest of Sowell's victims. Authorities only recovered her skull at the scene. The rest of her body is still missing. Michelle Mason left Cleveland as a young adult to spend time in New York and New Jersey. When her family didn't hear from her, they filed a missing persons report. Afterwards, Mason occasionally checked in with them. Battling a drug addiction, she returned to Cleveland and attempted to turn her life around. In October 2008, Mason went missing again. Her family reported her disappearance to local police, but grew frustrated by their slow response and the lack of media coverage. Mason's remains were eventually found at Sowell's residence. After they started unearthing bodies, the media began interviewing some of the families. There was one family member who was very upset. Rachel Dissel, a reporter on the Sowell case, recalls. She said there were news outlets running a story about Christmas ornaments being stolen from someone's front yard, but they refused to run a story about a mother who was missing. Yeah, that's pretty peculiar. Mason's family noted that up until she went missing, her final years were full of happiness and personal peace. Kim Smith took great care of her disabled father, taking him to his doctor's appointments, cooking and cleaning for him, all while battling a drug addiction. Her friends, who last saw Smith on January 29, 2009, 3 days before her 44th birthday, described her as an artsy person who enjoyed singing. She was not reported missing until after the bodies were discovered in Sowell's home. Nancy Cobbs ended up spending time in prison after spiraling into a world of drugs. Later, believing that she hadn't been the best mother to her children, Cobbs devoted herself to her 5 grandchildren. At some point, she befriended Sowell, who lived in the same neighborhood. The family knew of him, but didn't consider him dangerous. Cobbs, who was 44, vanished in April of 2009. The family filed a missing persons report, searched abandoned buildings, and posted flyers. 6 months later, her body was found in Sowell's home. Imelda Hunter, a beautician and a mother of 3, disappeared in the spring of 2009. Hunter's sister described her as a fighter. Her family remembers her as an avid bookworm who loved the classics. Like other victims, 47-year-old Hunter also struggled with a drug addiction. She was not reported missing until police first discovered bodies in Sowell's home. Tania Carmichael loved the life and for a time worked hard to provide for her 2 daughters. She was employed as a medical secretary and bartender and also earned her barber and real estate licenses. In 1985, Carmichael gave birth to a 3rd child, a son. Soon afterwards, she fell into drug addiction. Carmichael, 53, disappeared in the fall of 2009 and was the first victim identified from Sowell's home. Janice Webb was remembered as the family trickster, often pulling pranks. But in 1995, after a trip to Los Angeles, her life took a dark turn. She began using drugs and spent time in and out of jail for various crimes. Even as she battled her addiction, according to a sister, she was the one that kept the family together. 48-year-old Webb disappeared on June 3, 2009. Her family reported her missing about a month later. Investigators found Webb's body inside Sowell's home. Talacia Fortson was adopted as a child, and although she was loved, according to friends, she never overcame her feelings of abandonment. She often ran away from home as a teenager. Around this time, she became addicted to drugs and was arrested multiple times. She had 3 children, but lost custody of them due to her addiction. In early June 2009, just as she was turning her life around, 31-year-old Fortson vanished. Her adoptive mother reported her missing. Fortson's remains were among those found in Sowell's home. Diane Turner, a mother of 6, battled a drug addiction for most of her life. She entered multiple rehab programs and on and off remained clean and sober. Despite her illness, people that knew her said that she was a good person. Sowell murdered her in September 2009, making her his final victim. Authorities discovered her body on the 3rd floor of his home. Her remains were among the last to be identified because of the broken relationship she had with her family. After Sowell's conviction in December 2011, his former residence at 12205 Imperial Avenue was demolished by order of the city's leaders. In 2013, another Cleveland serial killer, Michael Madison, was convicted of murdering 3 women and identified as a possible copycat. East Cleveland Mayor Gary Norton told CNN that Mr. Madison was influenced by and even idolized Anthony Sowell. And you know, a wild thing about the case, Ray's Sausage Shop, they had to actually spend money and get their piping fixed because of the rumors that the foul smell was coming from them. Like, they spent $20,000 getting their piping fixed just for them to find out that it wasn't even the reason. It wasn't even the cause for the smell. And they just spent $20,000 for nothing to fix their pipes. On December 8th, 2016, the Ohio Supreme Court rejected an appeal from Sowell, affirming his aggravated murder convictions and death sentence. In May 2017, he appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. In October, it chose not to hear him. In February 2018, the Ohio Supreme Court denied his request to reopen his appeal. In May 2020, the state of Ohio's 8th District Appellate Court denied his appeal. Damn, you ain't getting out of jail. On February 8, 2021, Anthony Sowell died in prison of an unspecified terminal illness. He was 61 years old. I don't know, this whole case just kind of shocked me because my thing is, like, how do you continually invite people into your home knowing you have multiple dead bodies just lying around your property, and you're still inviting people? Like, you got 4 women in the 3rd floor of your house just in the crawl space, just 4 dead bodies just in the crawl space. You got 2 women in the basement. You got women in the backyard. You got somebody's skull. Like, what? You know what I mean? And you're constantly inviting people. This is someone who obviously, he got a thrill from inflicting pain on women. And he got a thrill from it. If he continually invited people, and the fact that he did it 11 times and probably could have did it more if nobody caught him, he wasn't stopping anytime soon. 74 counts of rape and kidnapping? This is a man who did not want to stop. He only stopped because he got caught. And it's just insane how the police didn't even care. It took 11 bodies for you to care? That's insane. And it could have been more. Because it was so many times where he actually was sexually assaulting women too. You know, he's no longer with us, and I am perfectly fine with that. But thank you for watching. I appreciate all the new people who have been subscribing to the channel. I appreciate all the support. But thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you. But leave a like, hit that subscribe button. But I'm out. Peace.